Yeah, so when we talk about influencing, then inevitably we move into communications. How do I communicate my message, and what is it that I even want? So I found over the last 20 years as a professional that communication is extremely important, and to some extent it is what we do all day, and it is the most powerful tool in the toolkit.
Do you think that engineers have good communication skills?
Again, the generic statement around are engineers good communicators is very difficult. Just some audiences, they are perfect because they know how to kind of say 1 + 1 is 2 in a very simple way, and the logic is perfect. So if you have an audience that likes that logic, then there you go. On the other hand, the audience is often a mix between those who like that language and those who are actually inspired by very different types of language. So again, I think communication very much depends on variability of styles and using the right tools. In general, I would say engineers are more prone to a certain style, and I think when they get into kind of a society with a lot of non-engineers around as well, it'll be important to broaden their communication styles and understand what the audience wants.
Have you ever failed in that area where you were communicating in an unclear way?
All the time, all the time. So this is a constant learning experience.
Give me an example, please.
When we in this market environment, we're looking at the risks of our raw materials. The market is very short, so we need to secure the supply of our manufacturing sites with the raw materials. I gave a very simple metric to measure how we would measure to reduce the risk. But risk is so complex that in the end I needed to decide to complex the metric a bit with putting other metrics. To give you an example, we said we'll look at raw materials where we only have one supplier qualified. And that's of course a very simple way of measuring what we're doing, and it's a very important thing, but it's not the whole picture. So I try to reduce the complexity to as simple as possible, but sometimes you understand that you went a bit too simple. And then you need to put yourself together saying, well, maybe this is very easy, but it is now not effective anymore. And now we're increasing the scope, making now 2 extra metrics into this risk, in this risk KPI, which is a bit more complex, but again, they're effective in balancing what is helping the reality and being simple for the message itself.
Sense making is, I think, important because it drives people. So if you have people working with you on certain problems, they need to know what they are working towards. I've seen so far that people liked working together on problems when they knew as a team what they were working towards. So after I had a position where I had lots of trainees working for me, and I always got more because they liked working for me, because I talked about them. What drives you? What would you like to achieve as a personal goal? And that helped. And once I saw that, when I got a new team working on, for instance, climate adaptation was quite a hard team, because it was people for a certain amount of their time that worked on my program. And they were provincial employees or municipality employees or water board employees. They were coming from different organizations and they had to work together. So I started that team by sitting together and thinking about what would our goal be when we are working together. And not just our goal as a team, but also what drives you? What are you good at? So you try to, as you would a good working mechanical thing, you try to put these together in a machine that goes and wants to go. And I think it's very important to start there, to start the communication, thinking about why are we working together, what are we working towards, and what is everybody's personal driver. And then after that, also thinking, okay, there might be different strategies or different situations. How would we handle that together? And even if you might not come to one certain solution, just having that talk together all help in the rest of the process when they're having to work together, because you understand more about each other and there's less disturbing communication, because you get to know what is driving that person. Why is he doing that? Why is she doing that? And it's actually quite fun, because there was somebody in that team who was a complete engineer, hot to, I don't know, soul. And so she was very technical. And sometimes that led to, yes, but we've been through that and we know it's not completely, you know, from A to Z. We can't. We need to think of another solution. But because they knew that she was so technical and that was what drove her, we could go back to the conversation and say, okay, we know that it might not be the optimal solution, but if we think about where we were going together and if we think about the differences between you and the other people in the team, what should we do? And just having that opening by starting to talk about what our goal is, what your goal is, what your drivers are, that was possible for the rest of the period when working together. So yeah, it's very important to, I don't know, that's my sense making sense of why people do things they do, making sense of what we're working toward, and having a set goal together to actually be able to really work together. And that, of course, also goes for the environment in which you work. You have to have talks with your partners, with your the bosses elsewhere, the people involved. So yeah, it's always about why are we doing this and why are you doing that, and bringing it together.